Alright, what's good everyone? In this video I'm going to be comparing the Z Fold 7 to the Oppo Find N5 and just seeing how they stack up against each other in all ways. I'm going to be comparing the hardware, the software, the cameras, even the speakers. So let's get into this comparison and let me know your thoughts in the comments below after the video. But you can pause it right now and let me know which phone you think is better before the test and the comparison. Let's get into it. So if we look at how thin they are side by side while they're open, very close. I think the Z Fold 7 is actually still thinner on paper. But if we look at the camera bumps, how they protrude, this is what it looks like. Both of them are super thin phones, you know, very light for a foldable phone. And they're basically like normal phones. Like, look at these phone screens now. You know, compare this to your 16 Pro Max, you know, your other big phones like the S24 and 25 Ultra. Like, these two foldable phones basically fit in with them now. So while we're taking in the outer displays and how close they are to normal smartphones, let's actually look at the weight. The Z Fold 7 is around 215 grams. The Oppo Find N5 is 235 grams. So it's heavier than Z Fold 7 for sure. It does have a screen protector on, so that might add like a couple grams, but still pretty close to a flagship phone. The iPhone 16 Pro Max, 225 grams. So in between both of these foldable phones. So basically what I'm saying and what I'm showing is that foldable phones are now at the point where they are like normal phones on the outside in thickness, in weight, and in screen size. And then you can open them up to a mini tablet. All right, so now we're going to compare the outer screens a little bit more. So this is how it looks in YouTube with the video not full screened. And then you can see the comments at the bottom. And pretty much like a normal smartphone, it is going to be obviously really small, but it's small on a normal smartphone anyways. So yeah, pretty normal experience. And then if we full screen, it's basically a very similar experience, very close to a regular smartphone again. And now if we open them up, we're going to go straight into the inside screens. This is how they compare. And you also see some software differences as well. This is how both of these phones look. In this orientation, this is landscape. If we rotate to how you're going to hold it mostly anyways, this is what it looks on both of them. So basically the same size, to be honest. I think their screen sizes might be both 8 inches. So it's the same thing really. You got your comments at the bottom. Very similar experience on both of these phones. And then if you look at the selfie cameras, when you go to full screen in landscape, the Z Fold 7 selfie camera is inside the video. It gets in the way a little bit. And then if you go full screen on the Oppo Find N5, it's off to the side. So it doesn't really do that at all. Here's how they look side by side. One thing we got to talk about is the hinges. So the hinge on a lot of these foldable phones is, I mean, it's thinner and thinner every single year, but foldable phones are kind of made for the flexibility and the different ways you can use them. They fold, you know, and one of those things is flex mode, or propping it up to use the camera with the built-in hinge, kind of like a tripod. The Oppo Find N5's hinge is pretty decent. Like if you have it at 90 degrees or, you know, a little bit before that, it's actually fine. But if you put it past 90 degrees, eventually, in my experience, it will just open and kind of snap back. And this is a thing that I've seen with a lot of foldable phones. The Z Fold 7 is, I feel like, a little bit better, a little bit more stiff compared to most of these newer foldable phones or the Chinese foldable phones. But the Z Fold 6 was amazing with articulating and staying at any angle, any degree, like very, very precise amounts of angles. But now, this, after a certain point, it kind of flops back, kind of like the Chinese foldable phones. And it makes it to the point where like flex mode is not that reliable, because eventually these phones will just open. I would say the hinges in terms of flex mode, the flex mode experience are pretty similar. Not too crazy of a difference, especially if you use it at 90 degrees, you shouldn't have any problems there. I thought I would mention that because I actually use my foldable phone's hinges a lot in different ways, like this, watching a video, or watching a video like this, or you split screen with a video at the top and something at the bottom. And Samsung software with the flex mode panel, sometimes I use it as a mini computer with the trackpad at the bottom. In terms of how they are on tables, the Oppo Find N5 is going to be a little bit better, especially when it's closed, because the camera bump takes up more space in the middle of the phone. The left side at the top will be a little bit rocky, but you're probably not going to be using that side anyways that much when you're just navigating your phone. Like normal usage, no issues at all. Even up here, if you don't like push it like that, it's not gonna really rock. On the Z Fold 7, this is probably one of the most wobbly phones ever. Like the camera bump is just off balance and is bigger than ever. So it's just gonna rock even in normal usage. Like lightly pressing it and it's rocking. With both phones open up, you will have some rockage on the Oppo Find N5, a little bit more than the outside screen, and especially if you get up here, but normal usage is going to be alright. Z Fold 7, interestingly, is going to be better for like using the middle of the screen and, you know, back and forth normal usage. But if you get to this corner, it's pretty bad. Top corner is alright, top left. So, I mean, it's okay on the inside screen, but you're still going to get annoying wobbles if you do anything on the right side. All right, so enough of the physical differences. Obviously, these are two very different phones running on two different softwares, different versions of Android. How do they compare in terms of the software experience and actually using these phones? First thing I'll say is that the Oppo Find N5 has a bigger battery. You're going to get significantly better battery life out of the Oppo Find N5 compared to the Z Fold 7. Let me actually switch them back because that's where I started. Not just because it has a bigger battery, but I think Oppo phones and OnePlus phones just generally have pretty good optimization when it comes to battery life in recent years. So you can expect significantly better battery life on the Oppo Find N5 versus the Z Fold 7, which still has the same battery size as the Fold 3. And honestly, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either. I think it's okay because the Fold 7 still has all day battery life. It can get you through a day for sure, especially with the optimization of the 8 Elite chip. But it is slightly disappointing when you look at other phones like the Oppo Find N5 that are basically just as thin and almost as light. And some of them are as light with significantly bigger batteries. So there is that to consider. But in terms of the software experience, both of them are Android phones. So, you know, you have an app drawer, but as you can see, very different approaches. Samsung allows you to have folders in your app drawer. You can also choose whether to scroll up and down or horizontally, which is something that I like. On the home screens, very similar experience again. One thing I like about both these phones is that you can select multiple apps on the home screen, and in Samsung's case, on the home screen and in the dock. So that's something that I like about both these phones, and you can put them into folders, uninstall them very quickly. But on the home screen, both of them allow you to have enlarged folders. That is something that I actually use. You know, you can enlarge the folder and then quickly launch these apps just by clicking on the icons without opening the folder fully. So I really like that feature. And one cool thing about the software on the Oppo Find N5 is that you can have unique sizes for your folders. You can have like a line like this, a square, or a vertical line as well. And it works the same way. You know, you can quick tap those apps to get into them. It just gives you more options for, you know, how you want to set up your home screen. So the only thing that sucks about this phone and a lot of other Android phones is going through your widgets and, you know, trying to find specific widgets. I feel like Samsung just does it the best in terms of going through those and actually accessing your widgets. So I'll show you that right now. Go to widgets, and then you have like some recommendations, and then it's just cleanly organized and you can search through them. That's something that nothing phones do that as well. A lot of Android phones, they don't really pay too much attention to small things like that. So that's where you'll see Samsung get a lot of points in the smaller details of the software. But bar for bar, they both have very similar features. Like you also have a sidebar on the Oppo Find N5, and on the Oppo Find N5, you mainly use it for like a quick floating window. But you can also open that in full screen or in a split screen as well. So if I grab this, I can do a split screen like that, and then you can adjust it. There's like 3 sizes on this phone, and that's about it. And on the Samsung, you do have your edge panel, and the edge panel is amazing on Samsung devices. So you can open it like that, and then you can also drag and drop into a floating window or a split screen, just like on the Oppo. And then you can also customize it so that you can tap to just open it into a floating window or a split screen very quickly. So you got a lot of options and customization potential on a Samsung device, but for the most part they have similar features. So what makes each of them unique? I mean, the Oppo Find N5 has things like this, like you could take a screenshot by 3-finger swiping down. So you actually can't 3-finger swipe up anymore. I don't know why they got rid of that, but you can do this to go into a split screen, or the other way to go into a floating window. So I mean, that is quick too as well. You could just be in an app and then using it, and boom, just go into a quick split screen session just like that. So that's not bad at all. On Samsung, the way that you enter into a split screen, I showed this in many videos, but 2-finger swipe to enter into a split screen, it gives you recommendations, and then you have your most used apps and then all the apps on your phone. You can also look at your app drawer as well, or search. And then if you want to enter into a floating window, you go from the top right, and then you can resize your floating window to any size you want. With the Find N5, your floating windows are not as flexible as Samsung's. Like you can expand it, adjust the size slightly, but you can't change the aspect ratio of the app. You throw it off the side, it looks like that, little icon, bring it back, and then you can only have one open at a time. Whereas on Samsung devices, you can have up to 5 floating windows at a time, and you know, it just works really well. Even on the outer screen, it just works really well. You can resize them to whatever size you want. Toss them off like this, and then they're still running. Like on the Oppo Find N5, the apps, when you toss them off to the side, they stop running. But on the Samsung, because it's like this, it still runs in the background. So if I'm playing a game, it will still be running. I won't get kicked out. I won't pause or anything, and then I can just bring it back. And like I said, resize it. So if you're playing a game, you'll probably have it like this, so you can quickly interact with it or something like that. But yeah, that's the multitasking system on the outer displays, and you know how you get into them. Like I said, the Oppo Find N5 has these gestures like 3-finger swipe down to take a screenshot. Then you have different things like these screen off gestures. So this one, draw a circle to open the camera, and then you have these ones that you can customize. Like if you draw these shapes on the screen while it's off on the outer display, then you can open specific apps that you choose or do different things. So let me just show you an example of that. Screen is off right now, draw a circle, and boom, I'm in the camera app. So you have unique gestures like that. You have the edge panel. You also have pretty good customization. Like you can change your icon pack very easily on this phone. Maybe even a little bit easier than on a Samsung phone. But with Samsung, you can kind of edit it in bulk before you even apply the icon pack. So, you know, different methods, like I said from the very beginning, very similar devices, and especially in the features that they have, but executed in different ways. And I mean, just looking at the software, both of them are rocking this transparent looking design, kind of reminiscent of iOS. Fresh out the box, the notification shade is separate, like how it is on iOS, and then swipe over to get your control center. But personally, I like to have it the classic way, so on both phones, you can actually go back to the original way that it was before. With Samsung, I like that you have the ability to have the brightness slider always there when you swipe down for your notifications, so that way you can quickly adjust it. And on this phone, you also have it too, so it's just one swipe. On other Android phones, you have to swipe twice to access your brightness slider. So both of them, again, very similar, just different ways of doing it, because this is how it looks on the Oppo Find N5. This is how it looks on the Samsung. You can customize your quick toggles as well. And then on Samsung, you have these ones that are kind of permanent, and you can move them up and down according to, you know, how you use them or what you want. Let's talk about a little bit more about multitasking before I move on to other things. So I did show you a little bit about how you enter into, you know, split screen, floating windows on both devices. Both of them have app docks. And if I go into an app, by default, the app dock is kind of gone. You swipe up to bring it. And from the app dock, you can do exactly what it's showing on the screen. So you can tap and hold to enter into a split screen like that. Or you can just tap the app to open it. And then you also have your app drawer right here. I like this integration because it's so minimalistic and simple. I actually prefer that over what Samsung does. And then you have 4 apps that you can set. You have recent files, which also I like too. And then you have recommended apps on the side. On Samsung, you can, by default, you can set more apps in your app dock. You can set up to like 8, I think. And then you can also go up to 12 in good luck when you customize it. Then you have your app drawer. So it opens up like this. It's not bad. It just takes up the whole screen, which I think is kind of unnecessary. And then from the app drawer, you can do the same thing. So you can tap and hold to enter into a split screen or a floating window. And you could just tap it normally to switch to that app very quickly. Both of them do that. But if you pay attention to it, you will see that there is like a difference in how they execute it. So for the split screen, you kind of have to hold it a little bit longer for the Find N5. Like as you can see there, the animation is a little bit slower. It's a little bit slower to recognize what you're trying to do. Whereas on the Z Fold 7, it's very quick. It's just, bomb. You know, it's kind of like just following your movement. Like I love how fast Samsung's is. And then top and bottom split, Find N5, you can't necessarily initiate that from, you know, just starting out at the bottom. You kind of have to start it and then press top and bottom split like that. Whereas on the Z Fold 7, I already showed it a little bit, but from the taskbar or the edge panel, you can just boom, whatever orientation you want it in. For the gesture, you can 2-finger swipe from the bottom to enter a split screen at the bottom with any app like I showed earlier. 2-finger swipe from the left side or the right side, 2-finger swipe from the left side as well. And like, it's just super intentional for how you want to use the split screen and the orientation and stuff like that. Find N5, the only gesture you have for split screen is this now. And then you can choose from your home screen or your app drawer, and it just starts it in a side-by-side split. You can't start it in a top and bottom split right away. But once you do it the first time, you can save an app pair Unfortunately, on this phone, you can't save app pair with the same app. On the Z Fold 7, you can do that if you want to. So 2-finger swipe, open up another Chrome, and then I can save it as an app pair on the taskbar, home screen, or the edge panel. And then boom, it starts two Google Chromes. I can even save a third one. 3 Google Chromes in the app pair. So now I have a pair of 2 Google Chromes and then a pair of 3 Google Chromes. So Samsung software, again, it's just, they do similar things, but I think Samsung's is a little bit more refined in the smaller details when you look at stuff like that. And now, how do they function when they're in split screen? So I think this is very important because these big foldable phones, you kind of, like, they're made for multitasking. I know not everybody does it, but this is kind of what they do. How they function, on the Find N5, you can adjust it, but you only have 2 options with the adjustments. So either they're in the shrink format, where it's like this, equal usage of the screen, or they're expanded. So it's kind of like a foldable phone full screen app, and then another app like this, but you can also expand this one as well. So now you have 2 full screen foldable phone apps side by side, and you can pinch to zoom out and see both of them and even interact with them like this. So it's pretty cool. It's a different way of multitasking, and if you want, you can add a third app to this, and you can choose where you want it. So you can either replace or you can add it, and then boom, it automatically moves the other apps down and kind of gives you a layout that it thinks is best for you. You can also expand this app again and have 3 full screen apps. The bottom one is going to be the biggest. That's just how it does it. You can't really customize how it shapes the apps. You can only just choose between the shrunk app and a big app, and then you can zoom out like this, interact with all of them again. It's pretty cool. Like, I think there are use cases where this method of split screen and multitasking actually can be used pretty well. Yeah, that's pretty tough. You can drag it and move it, but it's very limited to what you can do. Like, for the big app at the bottom, you can only put it here. If you want to switch the position, then you have to, I think, go to one of these. Nah, it took both of them to the top. So you kind of have to, like, switch the app with the buttons or shrink it and stuff like that. So it's not as flexible as Samsung's, as you'll see. But one thing that's cool is that you can kind of shrink all of them, and then you have like 3 smartphone screens side by side. I think this is kind of an effective way of multitasking as well. Like, you can be looking at 3 different smartphone apps in normal aspect ratios. Like, let's say you're trying to do social media things. A lot of times with foldable phones, the aspect ratio is not good for social media apps. But when you have 3 apps like this, like I said, basically 3 of these regular smartphone screens side by side. And for the third one, you do have to bounce back and forth, but most of the time you'll probably be using 2 of them anyways. So, like, let's say I'm posting to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the same time, then I can post on the first app, copy the information, post on this app, and then copy and post on this one as well, all at the same time. So this is perfect for like social media managers, or having the calendar app open, your email app, your notes app, etc. Like, you can do a lot with this. The only thing that is unfortunate is you can't necessarily save these things as app groups with the 3 apps. It's really cool, and you can also do a floating window, but only one floating window at a time. So you can effectively have like 4 apps open at once on the Oppo Find N5. And yeah, it's really cool. But that's basically it for multitasking, I mean, I'm saying that's basically it. Like, that's not a lot. It is still a lot, and it's still really good. But for me personally, I prefer how Samsung handles it. Recently, Samsung kind of added the same thing where you can expand 2 full apps. So if I go here, now I have 2 full apps, just like the Find N5. But personally, and also I don't like how it kind of zooms in, and then when you go to it, it kind of zooms out. Like, I don't know what's going on there. Personally, what I rather is Samsung's traditional way of doing split screen. So you have your normal split screen, but then you also can add the third app, and then boom, you might think like, oh, it's a small screen, small square, but what are you going to do with that? And in my experience, there's so many different ways you can use the sizing on the Z Fold 7. So like, you can, make this a little bit bigger. There's so many increment points of adjustment. Let me just give you a realistic example of what I would do, of one thing that I would do. So I'll grab the calendar, and then I will turn this one into the notes app, and then I'll turn this one into, let's go to Gmail. One example of this, I'm reading emails while taking notes, and then also adjusting my calendar. So I can do something like this, have the calendar small, and then my notes right here, and then email at the top. So this is something that I would actually do realistically. I can also do it like this, so that, they're all kind of a more vertical layout. I don't need the calendar to be that big. I just need to see the dates, and then I can tap on each day if I need to add something, or I can just quickly expand it if I want to see what is going on those days. Like, it's just that easy to, adjust the way you're doing your split screen session. You can also give more space to these apps. I'll still see the same information even if it's smaller. Like, it's just so flexible in terms of how you use it. Not only is it flexible in this sense, but I also might bring up, a floating window for messages or, photos or something like that. Whatever else I need to see, I can open up like up to 5 floating windows and be productive in that sense. So I know not a lot of people are going to do this, but for me personally, this way of multitasking just makes so much more sense and is so much better and more fluid and easy to, customize and use and do different things. I just like how Samsung does it better. And then on top of that, you can save your triple split screen as an app pair on your taskbar, home screen, or edge panel. Whereas on the Find N5, you can't save 3 apps as an app pair, especially in the different orientations as well. Like, whatever orientation I save it in on the Z Fold 7, it will open in that. So like, let's do this, save it to the home screen, and then let's actually rotate it to change it. And then I'll save it again as another app here. Then I'm going to close all these apps. Boom, they're all gone. If I open it like this, boom, exactly how I had it. Rotate the phone, exactly how I saved it. Then if I close all those apps again and open it like this from this one, exactly how I saved it. So that is really cool. I love the flexibility. I love the way that Samsung has optimized multitasking on the Z Fold 7 and just their devices in general. A little bit more on multitasking. With the Z Fold 7, you can actually enable it so that if you tap and hold, the taskbar will stay there. So you can quickly switch between the taskbar disappearing or it just staying there all the time. And you can do that in Good Lock in Home Up. And then you also have this setting right here, full screen and split screen view. So whenever you enter into a split screen, let's say you have your taskbar set to always be on, the taskbar in the split screen session will take up space. It will also show the status bar, and then the split screen doesn't have as much space. It doesn't use the screen as well. So you can set it so that when you enter into a split screen, it's just edge to edge, just using the whole display for your split screen session, and you can just pull it up. So that's just another way of it being flexible on the Z Fold 7. Whereas with the Find N5, if you have your taskbar always on, it's just not going to be as nice of an experience because it doesn't use the full screen real estate. And I mean, like, that's not something that's super serious. Like, this is still going to be really good multitasking. It's just a little nitpicky thing. And I feel like with both these phones, with the phones nowadays, they're all so good that, like, to tell the difference between them in terms of how you use them, you gotta look at the smaller details and the nitpicky things. One thing that's kind of underrated with the Find N5 is that it kind of has like a anti-glare inner display screen protector. So that is also nice. You can see the individual lights, the LEDs on the light that I'm using. I like that for sure. It's more visible under harsh lighting. But yeah, I mean, those are just the different ways that these phones handle multitasking. I think the name of the story is that they offer the same features. Samsung is just going to be a little bit more optimized. In my experience, you might not agree with me, but I think Samsung just has a little bit more attention to smaller details and, a bunch of like extra features. Like, I didn't even get into customization, but with the Samsung app called Good Lock, you can completely change how you use your phone, not even just aesthetically, but like literally with navigation and gestures and stuff like that. That you can go wild with Samsung stuff. And then there's modes and routines for different automations and things like that. Like, you can go deep with customization on a Samsung device. So I'm not going to get into that with this video, but just know if you want to customize your phone how you want to use it, this is the phone to get for sure. And just more flexibility, more features overall on this Samsung device. But I mean, the Oppo Find N5 is probably second behind Samsung when it comes to customization and features and stuff like that as a fully fleshed out foldable phone. Let's get into the performance. So, I mean, both these phones are running the 8 Elite chip. However, the Z Fold 7 has, it has the Snapdragon 4 Galaxy chip, which is slightly overclocked version of the same chip. And honestly, that's just marketing stuff. Like, it does give these phones, the Galaxy phones, better benchmark scores usually. But I mean, the phone gets hot and throttles anyway, so it's not like a huge performance gain in the real world, in real things you might do, like gaming or video editing, stuff like that. The Oppo Find N5 is low-key one of the worst performing foldable phones just out. Like, when this phone came out, I was very skeptical about whether it would be, good because of the fact that it's so thin and it's using the 8 Elite chip and all that stuff. Very skeptical. And to be honest, the skepticism was proven to be, right, I guess. Like, the Oppo Find N5, don't get me wrong, in daily usage, even in multitasking, it's not going to give you any problems. It's not going to stutter. I think most phones are past that point you're not going to get a flagship phone that is going to be laggy and slow and stutter when you're doing things that it's kind of designed to do by default. But where this phone struggles is in gaming and video editing and anything intensive. This phone, it doesn't necessarily heat up a lot, but it throttles a lot, and it can't get the most out of the chip that it has in it compared to other foldable phones. I mean, I still have to test other foldable phones, but the Z Fold 7 is just better in every way in performance. Like in games like Wild Rift, I can get a stable 120 FPS on the game itself, or while in split screen. The Oppo Find N5, it struggles to even do that by default, and then split screen is even worse. And then there are some software limitations. Like I don't know what Oppo is doing, but like the way that it manages its refresh rate is a little bit more aggressive than how Samsung does it. And you know, a lot of times you'll go down to like 90 hertz or 60 hertz, way more than the Z Fold 7 does. I think the LTPO just is flawless on Samsung's phone, but that doesn't really have to do with performance. But still, just performance, raw performance side by side, I think you're going to have a way better experience on the Z Fold 7. And now that the screens are basically similar sizes, like there's not really much to gain. If you're somebody who wants to play games and stuff like that, or you know, do heavy tasks on your foldable phone, there's not really much to gain on the Oppo Find N5. I think if anything, you're losing in that department. So Z Fold 7 just wins and destroys in the performance and gaming aspect. And then if we're talking about like, you know, split screen sessions while playing games and stuff like that, this is just a lot more flexible than the Oppo Find N5 when it comes to that. Like even the fact that you have to open the split screen session side by side first before you can do top and bottom is just very slow and kind of gets in the way, if you ask me. And then when you have the taskbar, it's just going to take up space as well. It doesn't automatically go away like how you have the option on Samsung. So you got to go to settings and turn it off. You got to go to settings and turn on the floating taskbar to maximize your screen real estate when you're doing a split screen session. So this is one of the ways I do split screen sessions on foldable phones pretty often. I play games at the bottom and then video at the top. And as you can see in the Oppo Find N5, this game is set to 120 FPS, but it's stuck at 60 FPS. That's just another example of the limitations of this device. I'm not sure if it's just, you know, Oppo's software optimization, you know, their choice, or if the phone just can't handle doing 120 FPS in a split screen. If I go full screen, let's see, the game will go up to 120 FPS, as you can see right here. But in my experience, it doesn't last that long in 120 FPS because of the phone throttling. So already from there, you can just see the limitation. Like in split screen session, the phone defaults to 60 FPS. Pretty unfortunate, to be honest, in this game at least. And then on the Z Fold 7, it's just going to be 120 FPS all the time. Very smooth, very buttery, even in split screen. And then if I go full screen, I mean, you already know it's going to be smooth, 120 FPS, buttery. So that's just an example of the performance optimization on Samsung's foldable versus the Oppo Find N5. And while we're here, we'll go to the outer display to give you a quick look of what it looks like in both of them. So Z Fold 7, boom, very smooth, and it just works. On the Oppo Find N5 outer display, and the example of transitioning between the displays, for this app, it works on both of them flawlessly. Yeah, this is what it looks like. It becomes a normal phone on the outside for both of them. I will say the ergonomics on the outside screen do feel nice with the round edges on the Oppo Find N5, but the camera bump gets in the way, and that's something that I don't like. So to mitigate that on the inside, you can play like this with the camera bump at the top, but then you end up covering the speakers, which are not that good on this device anyways, compared to the Z Fold 7's speakers. And this 7 speakers are kind of downgraded from last year's, but they are a bit better. And even if you hold them on the side where the speakers are, because of how they're designed, they just come out a little bit better than the Find N5. And then if you were to play like this, to let the speakers be at the top, the camera bump on the Fold 7 is not that bad at all. So it's a better experience. Inside ergonomics are basically the same for both of them. I don't think one is worse than the other. Yeah, I think it's pretty similar. The Find N5 is a little bit heavier, that's it. So now let's actually test the speakers. So I'm going to put the mic like this, and then I'm going to turn up the speakers on the Fold 7. This is how the game sounds.
Fear is the first of many foes. Forward!
Top turret is under
And
attack.
if I switch to this side, covering it,
Allied danger.
the Find N5 now. Even just from the beginning, like without even doing anything, it doesn't sound as good.
We fight for those who cannot.
This is the speaker side where my hands are.
Ally slain.
Keep faith in yourself.
Now, speakers at the top. So yeah, it's not going to be scientific, but let me know which speakers you think are better on these phones based on that sample and that test. To my ear, I think the Z Fold 7 is a little bit better, but to be honest, it's not that much better. They are pretty similar because, you know, they're slim phones. They don't have a lot of space for speakers. So yeah, I mean, I think the Find N5 might even get a little bit louder than the Z Fold 7, but it doesn't have as much clarity in the bass and lower tones, I think. But yeah, I'm not an audio expert. This is just from my ears. One thing that's important to me with these phones is external display support. And as you can see, the Oppo Find N5 actually can cast to an external display with the wire. And here you go. Here it's connected to a dock, and I have some external storage, and that is working just fine as well. You can see the OTG right there, and both of the external storage devices are showing up, and you can access the files. So that is nice. The only thing with connecting to an external screen on the Oppo Find N5 is that you cannot adjust it. So it's just going to be a square on the screen, and that's basically it. It still is pretty useful. Like if you're somebody who wants to do productivity on a bigger display, it's actually not that bad when you consider the fact that you have this open canvas or boundless view or whatever it's called. So now I got 3 apps open in open canvas or boundless view, and this is what it looks like on the external screen. So although it is a square, the fact that you can do this kind of enhances your multitasking a little bit on the external screen, and you can have a floating window as well. You don't technically get more screen real estate because it's just a bigger version of the inside screen, but I feel like it looks pretty decent on a big screen in the middle. This is still nothing when you compare it to what Samsung can do on the external screen. All right, so when you connect a Samsung device, a Samsung flagship, to an external screen, that's when you get some magic. So here is Samsung DeX. You can also use the built-in screen on your phone as a trackpad as well, and we will do that. So here's a trackpad, moving it around, and you can also use a mouse and stuff like that as well on both of these devices. But in Samsung DeX, it's going to enhance that experience. So Samsung DeX is basically a desktop experience. You can see different apps here. You can move them around to, you know, customize how you want your layout to be. You also have the wallpapers that you can change to whatever picture you want. And then you have the taskbar. You can add apps to the taskbar or take apps off the taskbar. And then the app drawer, add to the home screen, uninstall. Like it's basically your phone, all the files on your phone, but in a desktop experience. So now if I open the app, and the cool thing about Samsung DeX is that you can full screen any app. So like you can play a game with a controller on Samsung DeX, and it'll be a good experience because of the fact that it's connected with a wire. So there'll be low latency between the controller and what you see. And then if you're watching movies or videos or whatever it is, you just have this huge screen. It could be a TV, it could be a computer screen, wired or wirelessly. Samsung DeX also works wirelessly as well. It's just a really good, flexible experience. Outside of like doing things full screen, you also can open things in floating windows, just like how you would on a computer. So open up this and this, and you can open up unlimited apps if you enable that in Good Lock. And what you can do is snap them to the side for quick split screen multitasking, just like on Windows as well. And boom, 2 apps side by side, doing different things, being productive. connect the keyboard and the mouse to this device and it becomes a desktop PC. And then you don't really need a keyboard because you can tap on a text box and then boom, the keyboard pops up on the device itself with the trackpad being at the top still. So just a really flexible device when you connect to an external screen. And then when you connect wirelessly, you have the option of doing Samsung DeX on compatible displays, but then you also have the option of casting your phone screen just like the OnePlus did, but then you can also adjust the size of it so that it fits the aspect ratio of the external screen, even without using Samsung DeX. So that is just a really cool feature that Samsung does. So yeah, man, external display support, Samsung got that unlocked. Even just the Files app, the files management is just better here. I feel like USB-C accessories like SSDs and mics, everything just works better on the Samsung device. And with the Fold 7, I can actually use it to, you know, create content, edit the content on the Fold 7 itself, take content off of the Fold 7, especially external mics. This is something that people don't really talk about, but I'll actually show you an example of it. All right, so I have the external mic connected to the Z Fold 7. You can see it right here. And this is how it sounds on the Z Fold 7. This is what I mean by Samsung devices just work really well with USB-C accessories like mics. So now I got the external mic connected to the Oppo Find N5, and this is how it sounds on the Oppo Find N5. And you'll just see exactly what I mean by when I say that Samsung devices just have really good compatibility with external accessories. They're just some of the most reliable phones, and I think that is still true even between these two devices. This just goes back to the optimization of the software and the attention to small details that Samsung has for the devices and things like this. So yeah, let me know what you think about the quality of the Oppo Find N5 using the same exact mic, the DJI mic, versus what the Z Fold 7 did. Moving further, the next thing in the foldable phone experience that you gotta compare when you're looking at these different foldable phones is the camera experience. You know, the Find N5 has this big module, the Z Fold 7 has a slim but still protruding module. So which cameras are better? I'm gonna let you decide. I'm gonna roll some footage and then we'll get back and close out the video. Find N5 can't do 4K 60 on the selfie camera. Caps out at 4K 30. The Z Fold 6 can do 4K 60 on all of its lenses. The Oppo Find N5 also cannot do 4K 60 on its ultra-wide camera as well. So, you know, some differences in capabilities. The way that the Oppo Find N5 is reproducing my skin is kind of crazy. Like, it's removing all the blemishes or whatever, wrinkles, lines, detail in my face is just gone. The Oppo Find N5 is making me look like super smooth. It's not how I look in real life. And to be honest, I kind of like the real life version better. All right, so that was basically it. This is the Z Fold 7 versus the Oppo Find N5. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and what do you think about how these two compare against each other. I think they are both top tier foldable phones, and you really can't go wrong with either one. There's a lot of features I didn't mention for both of them on both sides. And I mean, if I did mention everything, this video would be like 3 hours long, maybe longer, because there's just so much. But that's it for this video, and stay tuned for the next one. Make sure you subscribe because a lot more content on the way. Until next one, we're out. Peace.